Spirituality, that's a relationship between you and divinity, you and that which is divine, you and that which is responsible for all creation. Religion means to bind, to hold, to control.
Religions have been used as the primary agent of dominance and control of African peoples.
If you control the mind or the thinking of any person, you control their reality.
Religion only means to realign. Re means to go back to align yourself, because everything was God.
Spirituality is I'm embracing the universe. It's based upon knowledge, wisdom.
Western religions is an Western interpretation of an African theology and cosmology that has existed for thousands of years.
We are not looking at the world through our ancestors' eyes. We are impacted by concepts of a white creator God that created all things, and particularly a male God.
The children of Africa that left out of Africa, they begin to have a struggle with the feminine and the masculine as oppositional energies, and really wanted the masculine to be primary.
It was principally men who crafted this notion of the divine in masculine terms and left out the women.
It is without doubt that the ancient cultures of the world were matriarchies, not patriarchy.
And so there were images of this black mother and child that were regarded as the black Madonna and child.
They understand that their version of the Madonna child is simply their rendition of an archetype. And that archetype is black.
The woman was revered as a creator.
God creates. A woman creates. So maybe the true gods on this earth is women. And we as men will sit here to protect God while she creates.
Wow. And that was just the trailer. Can't wait till everybody gets a chance to see the full thing, or at least the portion we're going to be showing here today. So stick around, y'all. This is going to be great. So first, I just want to say welcome to everyone. Thank you for joining us here on Building 7 YouTube channel. My name is Saray, also known as Saray the 411 on Instagram and YouTube. And as a creative media strategy person, one of the things that I love to kind of hone in on is Black excellence, Black community development, and all the things that we know that we need to be doing as a people. And what better way to just combine all of those worlds into one in a beautiful piece of art, such as the film Out of Darkness, Heavy is the Crown 2. So thank you to all the guests. If you have any questions, if you want to chime in, just keep those coming and we will address those and let you know when we could do that in our question and answer portion. But for right now, you might recognize this gentleman on screen next to me, but if you don't, his name is Amadeus Christ. He's the director of that beautiful clip you just saw, as well as some other films you might be aware of that we'll talk about today. But without further ado, I just want to go ahead and introduce you, Amadeus. Thank you for having us here.
Absolutely. I'm excited. I'm excited for you guys to see the film, and all my Bay Area people, put your cities in the chat.
Yeah, let us know where y'all are watching from, because we know we have, people from all over. I'm definitely interested to see if we have any international people. It's the evening, it's going into the evening time here in the States. So if anybody actually did join from overseas, I know I invited a couple people from the UK. So thank y'all for being up late with us if you are here. But I just want to make sure that people understand your thinking and your premise behind kind of the why of this film and what you hope audiences are able to take away from it?
That's a good question. The premise is, well, the film is broken into two parts. The first part is the drama part, and the second part is the discourse. So hopefully you guys have seen volume one. Volume one details the Asarian drama, deals with religion as a base concept. So this is following the heels of the first Out of Darkness. First Out of Darkness came out in 2015. What we did was kind of take you through a general timeline of events on what happened to us as a people, starting from 4000 BC, introduce you to ancient Kemet, walk you through the fact that we are indigenous to America, touched on the Moors in Spain from 711 to 1492. That's the first part of Out of Darkness, the original Out of Darkness, which is on Tubi right now, so you guys can check that out. The second part deals with European colonization, racism, white supremacy, cognitive dissonance, the illusion of inclusion, pretty much like the psychological aspect of what happened to us. So the first part is the historical, second part is the psychological, third part is the nation building, how we can get our minds back. So we got 3 chapters in that third part. One deals with hip hop, the history of our people and our history, going back to the griots, going back to the Wolof in West Africa. We got a chapter on the Illuminati, and then we got the last chapter which deals with nationhood. So you got pretty much the historical, the psychological, and then the third part is the political. Then we go into the Out of Darkness, Heavy Is the Crown, Volume 1, which is the religious, the spiritual aspect. So I feel, and a lot of people feel this way also, that the spiritual component might be the most critical piece for all of this. Shout out to Tony Browder. When I was right on the heels of releasing the first Out of Darkness in 2016, early 2016, I got a chance to actually go to Kemet with Tony Browder. I did the study tour with him. And we went to pretty much like all of the temples except for like 2 or 3 of the temples. But we spent about a good 2 weeks in Kemet, and me actually seeing the temples and touching it, and you know what I mean, experiencing that pilgrimage over there and seeing the majesty of what we built, and then seeing all of these stories on the wall. Because it's one thing when you're doing a documentary like the first Out of Darkness, obviously is just mostly animations and pictures, right? Dealing with the Kemet section. So that was special in it of itself. But when I actually got to go to Kemet and actually see it with my own eyes, that's when I was like, okay, I gotta, I gotta like really, I gotta really, like, it touched me, it moved me. And I had to do, I got tons and tons and tons of footage. So I'm like, okay, now's the time where we got to really step it up. Now that I got the footage, and I'm seeing everything, and I'm seeing all of the stories actually carved on the wall, that's what inspired me to do Heavy Is the Crown. But you're dealing with 4,000 years of history, so you can't just put it into an 1.5 or 2-hour film. So I actually broke it down into 2 volumes, which was inspired by, shout out to Kaba for putting me up on game on the Shabaka Stone. But anybody who knows the Shabaka Stone is actually divided into 2 pieces. And I was watching, I can't remember the video, but there's a guy explaining the Shabaka Stone as the first part being like a play almost. So that's the drama aspect. And then the second part was the discourse, where the actual discussion of everything. So that's kind of how I formulated Heavy as the Crown, Volume 1 and Volume 2. I was highly, highly inspired by this trip. The second part of the trip, when I went to Kemet the first time, was after the 2-week study tour was over. Me and Tony actually got to link up with Brother Ranoko Rashidi, and we went to Sudan for a week. And that was crazy, man. We actually stayed like in a Nubian village. The study tour in Egypt, we're staying at like luxury hotels and, all you can eat buffets, right? So that fit most of the people that were there, because it was like, we were living in luxury for the most part. When we got to Sudan, it was a totally different story. I don't think I saw clean water for the whole time we were there. It was an experience. It's very grounding. We stayed in a Nubian village. We went to Merowe. We went to El Kuru. We went to Karima. Flew into Khartoum. Jebel Barkal. Camped out in front of we spent the night at Merowe, driving through the deserts. I mean, going through all of these checkpoints, you know what I mean? Pulled over by security guards. They're like checking our paperwork. We had to like pay them off. It was just the craziest thing. The dude is like the drivers. We had the two coolest drivers, man. They drove us everywhere, and they were like professional cooks. Ate a lot of fruit, a lot of mango. We're driving on the highway, and he just pulls off to the side of the driveway. We're just driving through the desert. A lot of the sites in Nubia, people don't go to. Obviously, it's not like Egypt where it's like touristy. In Nubia and in Sudan, it's not like that at all. Like, you really got to know somebody. We had an awesome tour guide. We spent about a week there. It was my first time, obviously, Tony Browder's first time, and then I think Renoko's first time. It was like all of our first times in Sudan. But it was wonderful. So in theme with the Nile Valley civilization, I'm showing you the other piece that most people don't see. We always see the Kemet part, but we don't see the Kush aspect. So all in all, to bring it home, I took all of that footage from 2016. Then I went back in 2019 because Tony Browder was a part of the ASA. He was the director of the ASA restoration project. So they're actually doing a dig over there in the west bank of Luxor in the South Asasif Mountains, restoring a temple tomb of the 25th dynasty of Karakamoon. So after the study tour was over, we stayed in an apartment in the West Bank. So I really got to be with the people. I'm taking the ferry back and forth across the Nile. Went to my favorite restaurant. If anybody been to Kemet or Luxor, that the what's that called, Africa restaurant, was eating there every day. Just going up in the hills of the South Asasif Mountains, hopping on the back of people's motorbikes, just thugging it out. So we went back in 2019. I stayed in that same apartment for about a week and was helping Tony promote the dig. And they had a big grand opening. They had a big, what do you call that, gala? They had a gala dinner at the Luxor Hotel. I should have pulled up that trailer. But going back the second time, I was actually able to get more footage. And, it takes a long time for you to like internalize this information. You know what I mean? I had to really internalize it. So I know people has been waiting for this new volume 2 for a long time, but it takes a lot of work, man. It's like I'm saying, it's over 4,000 years of history you're trying to condense into a 4-hour film, 2 hours on each part. So yeah, volume 1, Asarian drama. We introduce you to the concept of the Netchers, what the Netchers are. They're not gods. They're not beings that the ancient Egyptians worship. They actually were aspects. They represent aspects. They were like avatars, as Kaba would say. So now we get into the second part, and I'm excited.
All right. Well, and thank you for kind of naming the breadth of all of this, because we are talking about 4,000 plus years of history, and for you to have really encapsulated into these series of films that internalization process, that travel, that hands-on learning process with some of the foremost scholars in our community, trusted names, that is really a great work and a great service that you have provided in this really beautiful, aesthetically beautiful way, and just woven it all together in a way that is undeniable to really embrace what you're hearing. Because a lot of times we battle between what the world says is true and what we know is true about ourselves and about our history. And what I love about this films is it removes the cognitive dissonance, because you know you have on site, on location, you know, interviews from these people who are there, who are doing the study, who are doing the work, all compiled, and one after another, what they're saying is lining up, even though they're not in the same room. So that's something that I really love about it. But speaking of those people, the other contributors that have been involved with the film, we have one of them here in the room with us today, don't we? Yeah.
Absolutely, waiting patiently
Yeah.
backstage
Waiting
to be
patiently.
brought up.
Yeah. And
We got two special
before we
guests.
bring him on, before we bring them on, I do want to give some love to the chat. So earlier you said let people know where they're watching in from. So we have some people, you know, kind of let us know. So we got Frisco, Texas in the building. Thank you. Memphis, Columbus, Ohio, Germany. Thank you, Germany. Atlanta, San Francisco, Tupelo, Mississippi. All right, I'm from Alabama, so shout out to the dirty South. We got Lagos, Nigeria in here, y'all. The motherland is here checking in. Brother Boom from Philly, what's up? London is here, okay. Florida, Milwaukee, South Carolina. Wow, Chicago. Everybody's here. We got the whole squad in here.
Coast to coast.
Yes.
We got Kaba from the Bronx. We got Zaza Ali from my hometown. Well, I claim Oakland and San Francisco. So yeah, we get into that later. But we got Zaza Ali from Oakland.
Grown Gangster also from San Fran. Okay, thank y'all for tapping into the chat. But go ahead.
And I got my Detroit peoples, my team members backstage too. Toby Tantil and Gifted C. Johnson. Shout out to Gifted C. Johnson, man. He really helped me with the music part. Yeah, I don't consider myself to be a musician. He does. He went to the Julia School of Arts, if I'm not mistaken. Brother's incredibly talented, incredibly gifted, hence the name Gifted C. Johnson. But he helped me. He helped me score some of the most the piano parts that just super soulful and sultry, man. And I just want to give a shout out to him. We'll bring him up on stage during the Q&A.
Mm-hmm. And they're gonna want to know. They're gonna have questions like I did, because once you actually hear it, and when you're watching the film, you're not thinking about the score. But once I realized this beautiful score that I'm hearing has been made, like handmade, hand produced by these brothers, I had to watch it again just to listen back to the music. And I was telling Gifted, like, I need the soundtrack on Spotify, because it's low key fire.
We working on it. We working on it.
Make sure y'all listen out for that.
Yeah. For those that don't know, I do have a musical background. Actually, I was a quote unquote rapper / producer prior to becoming a filmmaker. So all the music that you hear in the film is original music. It's none of the music is AI generated. It's all original music. Shout out to Gifted again. So what makes the film special with the music, most documentaries that you see, it has music in it, but the music is just like background music. And it's not, it accents the documentary. But with these documentaries, I actually edited to the music. So it's like it has a pulse, you know what I mean? It's specially handcrafted. Let's put it like that. It's a tailor-made documentary. I really wanted the music to be an important part because the music pulls you in, and the music tells its own story as you're watching the documentary. Makes sense.
All right. Yeah.
All right.
So in just a moment, we are going to play a portion of the film. Now, y'all, this brother is a filmmaker. You talking about somebody that has a degree in filmmaking. So this is a whole film, and it's very well put together, and it's over 2 hours of valuable information. And I know we sharing a lot of love and everything in the chat, but 2 hours is a very long time to ask of anyone on a Sunday night. So we do want to make sure that we show the like, I would call it like the headlining chapter of the film, which deals with the divine feminine. So we are going to show that, but we do want to make sure that that you can watch the film. Today is the 9th. It will release officially on platforms on the 11th. And if you did purchase a ticket here today to support Building 7 and Brother Amadeus, we will be contacting you for how you can get access to the film in exchange for your support. So thank you guys for that. But without further ado, let's get ready to watch that portion. But first we want to introduce, who's in the house as far as other panelists. So who we got up first?
Let's bring to the stage Miss Zaza Ali. Here we go.
Hey sis, how you doing? Mic check.
I think your mic is muted, Zaza. There we go.
Can you see me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. We can see you and we can hear you. How you doing today?
I'm doing great, sis. How are you?
I'm doing well.
You sent me a text. You sent me a text. I've been in the back room for 30 minutes now listening to you guys.
Oh, okay. I was like, let me know when you get here.
Yeah, I literally just saw it when you guys brought me on stage. So pardon me for that.
Oh, it's all right. As long as you made it, that is all that matters.
Yeah. How you doing, King? I'm happy to be here, and I'm so proud of you for your consistency and for raising a vibration and doing it through film. I'm very grateful to be here with you guys. You have some of my biggest influences in terms of teachers in this film and in your first one. So thank you so much for having me, and I'm honored to share the stage with you and Miss the Queen as well. Thank you for inviting me, sis.
Thank you. Much appreciated. So we understand you have a new project out.
I do. I have my most recently released textbook, which is right in alignment with, what you're going to be talking about in the film, Ancient People, a Social Studies and History textbook. And you talked about Kush, which I have a section, the Kandakis of Ethiopia and Kush. And it was important for me to highlight Kush as the parent and mother civilization of Egypt, or Kemet, which a lot of people don't even know. I studied under Professor Manu Ampem when I got my African Studies degree in Oakland. And so he was an archaeological. He always talked about going back and doing the on the ground research. He was so adamant about that. And so through his research and him being on the ground, it really showed me not only the importance of the checks and balances of history, right, and doing the research, but like actually being on the ground. And, because the geologists say one thing, right? The archaeologists say one thing, right? The quote unquote Egyptologists who are in control of our artifacts and how what's being shown in these museums, and how all of these things are being presented to the world. They're saying one thing, but the bones and the images in the pyramids and the reflections of these ancient kings and queens say something totally different, right? So like Taseti, the land of the bow, where you have all of these images of these African warriors who were very highly skilled with using the bow and arrow. How many of us, our culture, our people actually really even know that and understand that history? So there's 2 chapters, the Moors in Spain and Africans in Asia, where I focus heavily on the warrior spirit, right? The African male, indigenous, ancient, Asiatic, whatever, particular language you're comfortable with. But these are very dark-skinned, heavily melanated men who represented the warrior spirit and the warrior energy. And then I have 3 chapters on queens, the same concept, African melanated indigenous women from around the world, dark-skinned, who represented a higher level of womanhood, of consciousness, of focus, of intention. All of those things were very important for me. So 3 chapters on women in particular, because I am a woman and because I understand that the timeline we're in right now, there is a very specific war being infringed on our women, because they understand that we are the key to unlocking the codes and the power and potential, not only of women, but of all of our people. And to be honest, the world, right? And then I have the 2 chapters that are specifically focused on men and manhood, but the warrior energy and spirit in particular. So me being from Oakland, me being in LA right now, I have seen the warrior energy in our men be intentionally perverted and limited through crack cocaine, through hybrid and genetically modified weed, right? Through liquor and alcohol, through cigarettes, right? That's why I wrote my first book, The Scientific Intervention in Our Affairs, because I was looking at Oakland and trying to figure out how we went from a burgeoning, predominantly Black culture and civilization to I'm seeing brothers and sisters on the corners nodding and barely able to stand up. And so I was studying all these things at a very young age. So to go back to the point about the king energy, here in LA, we got the Bloods and the Crips, right? We've got in Oakland, we had turf wars and gangs that were focused on, blocks, and it was more so focused on money. You look at Brooklyn, you look at Miami, you look at Dallas, all of the main cities across this country, that warrior energy is being harnessed and being limited and being capped, right? And being focused in a specific direction, so that our men have become enemies in our communities and to our culture, just in terms of the gang element. And Chicago, being a prime example of that. And so for me, I've been slowly but surely, methodically studying us, of course, right? Because we are the reflection of the source, but then I've been studying them too. How did you go from being the smallest demographic in the world and end up taking control and owning and controlling the natural resources in our homelands, right? And you're the minimum in terms of the population, right? So I've just been really trying to understand how we got from there to here. And now here I am in 2025, looking back, going back 150,000 years, right? Because Hatshepsut, for me, which is chapter 5, the 18th dynasty and Pharaoh Hatshepsut, when I found out about Pharaoh Hatshepsut, I was like, oh, that's it. We looking for women and idols to sort of model ourselves right after, right? Because women are an ecosystem, just like men are an ecosystem, right? So when we say it takes a village, yes, it's important to have those foundational pieces around us, which many, if not most of us, don't have. I didn't have it, right? So I was keen. I'm looking around at the sisters around me like, yeah, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. I'm definitely not doing that, right? Even women in my family and just, crack cocaine and the impact. So when I found out about Pharaoh Hatshepsut, right? When I found out about Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, when I found out and studied the works of Mother Tainetta Muhammad, when I found out about Queen T and Amana Shaketo and Amina Reynes, and it was like, oh, okay, I can rock with this, right? And so these great historical legends and icons were unlocking things in my mind, were unlocking my potential, were unlocking where I could potentially go. And so at like 18, 19, when most of my friends were turning up, I was in the history books. I was into Cheikh Anta Diop. I was into Ivan Van Sertima. I was reading all of these books because it was unlocking and a safe haven for me, even growing up in Oakland at a time when the crack epidemic was at an all-time high. It was a safe haven for me to go into my mind and to acknowledge something different, something better, something that resonated with the truth that was in me. So all of those people I've referenced, even in Africans in Asia, most people don't know that the samurai were actually modeled after a man named Sakanuye no Tamuramaro. This is a dark-skinned Black man whose family were said to have migrated from Korea. He came from a family of mercenaries where governments who were having issues and that their armies couldn't, sort of quash, they would hire these mercenaries to come in and take care of all of the issues. So 400 years before the actual samurai became a thing, Sakanuye and his family of mercenaries, these men, went to Japan and they hired them to basically take down the Ainu, who were also very short-statured, dark-skinned people, right? The Ainu or the Emishi, they have different names. And so I'm looking at this and I'm like, wait, he did what? Not only was he a warrior and a big guy, a big brother, right? But he was also kind and gentle and very prominent in civil affairs, right? People would go to him for advice. So you've got this balance of the masculine and feminine energy in a very strong way representing itself. And his legacy was so powerful that 400 years later, he was the first Taseti. But 400 years later, when they did, create what was later called the samurai, it was all modeled after him. So you talk about leaving a legacy, right? Leaving an imprint. These are the figures that I'm looking at, and I'm praising them and I'm respecting them, but I'm also like, man, they worshipped Hatshepsut for 300 plus years after she transition. Not worship like she's my God, but like look at what she did. Look at how she was loved, what she created, what she embodied. That's the frequency, right? Sakanuye no Tamuramaro, for 400 years after his lifeline, the warriors and the soldiers and those who were acclimated to being warriors went to his gravesite and worshiped there, his energy, his spirit, the essence of his being, because they wanted to embody that. So in 2025, here you are creating films and creating content and creating conversations that are releasing the cap from our minds. So 100 years from now, 200 years from now, 300 years from now, when people are locked into a digital realm of consciousness, we will have the essence of your work and your energy to be able to draw back on, to bring us back to the center and make it all make sense again. So I that's the end of my TED Talk. I talk a lot. I have a lot to say, but I hope I answered the question, if there was a question.
That was beautiful. We're gonna we got a dedicated part of the program for the Q&A. So
okay.
Zaza, I'm going to bring up Kaba and remove you temporarily,
okay,
and then
brother.
We'll go.
I love you. Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here on the panel with him as well.
Much appreciated.
Yes.
All right. You want to introduce the next guest, Ray?
Yes,
He
sir.
He should need no introduction, but
he should need no. He doesn't need one. If you are familiar with the brother formerly known as Booker T. Washington, but now officially known as Booker T. Coleman. That's right, and now officially known as Brother Kaba Khomeini. Wonderful author, speaker, educator, and just an all-around beautiful brother. So can't wait for the people to hear from him.
Kaba is one of I got 3 Jedi masters. Tony Browder, Professor James Small, and Kaba Hiawatha Khamenei. That's my holy trinity.
That's a good one.
They've been advising me through my whole growth process. Unlike Zaza, I came into this information very late, just about 10 years ago. I kind of woke up, but Kaba has been one of the key people that's been guiding me through this process and been coaching me, and really encouraging me. And he tells me to own my greatness. So let's bring him to the stage, Brother Kaba.
And my brother Amadeus, and to my sister Saray, I want to thank you for this opportunity of inviting me to be a part of this program. As you know, I've been part of a process for a while. And Brother Amadeus, as you were talking about the evolution and the history of what you were doing, I go back to somewhere around 2015 with you. Could even have been 2014 when we started planning to make this happen. And at this time, I had not published any books yet. I was on the cusp, but it seems that your evolution as it relates to your filmmaking, as we know it today, from Out of Darkness, Heavy is the Crown 1, Heavy is the Crown 2, it also reflected my development. Because like you said, Shabaka Stone was the book I wanted to write. And when I heard our sister Zaza Ali speak about the role that women have played, even in my own life, it was my mother who gave me a Xerox copy of a book that was out of print. It would come into print that same year, 1976, but I got it before it came out. And it was called Stolen Legacy by Dr. George G.M. James. And I had been introduced to a chapter 8 from page 139 to 151. And I was always very interested in astronomy. I wanted to be an astronaut. That was what I wanted to do. I wanted to get up off this earth and find my ancestors in the heavens. And so I was very interested in astronomy. And so when I read this chapter on the Memphite theology, I had never heard anything like this before. This just took me to this connected neurons that up to that date had never been connected before. And I said, I have to write a book on this one day. And so when I remember you and I were speaking about Heavy is the Crown, and I remember you were telling me things and it sounded just like Shabaka Stone. And I said, well, brother, this book, Shabaka Stone, reflects a lot of what you're talking about. And I remember that I immediately sent you information before it was published. I sent you information just to, show you where my research was leading me as it related to the Shabaka Stone. And before I could write Shabaka Stone, though, I had to get the community ready for what Shabaka Stone was going to tell them, because our greatness, when I say own your greatness, I'm talking about all of us. Make me no difference where you are in the station of life. If you are a melanated person living in 2025, you're a miracle. When I heard our sister Zaza Ali speak about the crack epidemic, here I am in New York. I'm in the Bronx. Okay. I moved through the rap era. I was a disc jockey during the rap era. And I know that we have such a power as a people. Melanin is a conductor of solar power. And we just don't realize that power. We have been dimmed. Our light has been dimmed by this. And there are others who have taken and understand. And I always send people to Richard Pryor when he had that television program back in 1977, where he's in a temple in Kemet, and he's carrying the bags for all the other archaeologists. And he comes in, he carries the bag, he sits down, and he starts looking at the books. You know, the writings of the people that wrote the original Kemites, the original Egyptians. And he starts talking about, wait a minute now. This is a black man here. Okay, this black people did this. And all of the European archaeologists, they're talking amongst themselves, but then all of a sudden they start hearing his voice. And he begins to talk about, hey, listen, we did this. Black people did this. We the ancient Egyptians. And all of a sudden you see the European archaeologists slowly backing out of the temple. Slowly backing out. And Richard is still there talking about everything he's reading. And then all of a sudden they leave the door and they shut it. But the most dramatic part of it, and I know, you can appreciate this, my brother Amadeus. The moment they shut the door to that temple, the light goes out.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they did to us.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they burned our books. That's why they stole our books. And that's why in 2025, they are banning our books. Because they know that if you get this information into our young people, if our young people understand who they truly are, if they understand their DNA that they carry from the masters of the cosmic universe, the masterpiece of this earth, you won't have to tell them what to do. They'll know what to do. And Brother Amadeus, I've told you this privately, and I'm going to tell you this again. You have created for us a template for liberation and emancipation. Because the images that our community will see and have seen in Hidden Color, in Heavy as the Crown, and then Heavy as the Crown 2, the images that you've created. See, you being a graphic designer is different from just a filmmaker, because you have created images that have never existed before. And that becomes important because we are a visual people. That is medumneter, or what's called hieroglyphics. Those are images that connect to the neurons in our brain. We are a visual people. We are a sensual people. Our senses, what we hear, what we see. And so as you play this piece today, the community is going to see things that have never existed before. And I compliment you on this, brother, your tenacity, because I remember when you told me you had to cut Heavy as the Crown into 2.
Yes.
Because it's too much. It's too much to absorb. The neurons will short circuit in the brain. Because as a black person, we have been believed, even those that have been studying this, even those that have a lot, myself included, let me get first online. Your stuff blew my mind. Let me tell you something else. Because like I told you, the way in which when you shared Heavy as the Crown, well, when you shared all of them with me, but this particular one, I told you I always break it up into pieces. Just like when you're listening to a symphony, you try to separate the horns from the drums, from the percussions, from the chordophones, the guitars, the bass. Well, that's what I do when I'm watching things. I take things apart. I listen to only the words of what's being said. Then I listen to the visuals. And then, Brother Gifted, see that music. That music itself could win a Grammy. Your film.
Thank you.
Your film could win an Asar. They call it Oscar, but if you take the C from Oscar, it becomes Asar. And if you look at the statue, it looks like Asar. In fact, it looks like Asar Patah. So that's where they get that from. But I just congratulate you on this, brother. And again, spirituality before religions was a piece I wanted to write. And when you talk about melanated people, carbon before melanin. But then there's something that you also did, brother. you also went to Spain and to Morocco. And you did research on the Moors. Remember, you and I were talking, and again, just like you were talking about Heavy is the Crown 1, and I was talking about Shabaka Stone, when you was talking to me about going to the Alhambra and going to Cordoba and going to various places, I was saying, whoa, brother, I'm doing a book on the Moors. Remember in Atlanta, we sat and we did an interview in Atlanta.
Absolutely.
And we talked about the Moors and who were the Moors before the Moors. This is my latest publication. I just published this last month. Family, I'm just so excited to be here. I am honored and privileged to share this time with my sister Zaza Ali, whom I've admired for a very long time. Her intelligence, her ability to be able to convey ideas, as you've just noticed, she was able. I saw a comment here that said that he could listen to her all day long. In fact, he said she could read the phone book and he'd be listening. Her voice. It's not just what you say, it's the flavor. As a Black folk, we got flavor. We just don't do something, we do something a certain way. And if you want to know what the real cornerstone to our challenge is, it is that our women, our Black women, have not been respected for who they actually are and what they've contributed. And if you don't believe me, read a book called The Sibyls. Every sister should read this book, Mama Wata. Get this book. Every brother should read this book.
There you go. There you go.
This was given to me by a sister from Texas. And she said, have you ever heard this? Because I talk about Nebetet, who's part of the Asarian drama. Nebetet is the oracle reader. It is the sister who is grounded to the earth that has direct communications with the divine. And it is the male energy that then is able to interpret the oracle that our sisters are giving us. Now, I'm proud to be a man, but I know the role of our sisters. And until that sister sits on the throne, that's why Aset is a throne. That is the Madonna and child. That's not just a child and his mother who is, as Hatshepsut did, nurtured the children. That really is symbolic that the male energy sits on the lap of the mother energy and has the right to rule, but it is the feminine energy that knows who the males are that should rule. It makes a lot of sense, because who better to know who rules than the hand to rock the cradle? Who better to know who should be the leader of the community than the woman that carried that child for 10 months in her womb? Our sisters are our first library. And it's important that we as brothers understand this. Take our rightful place. But we've done some great things. But when we don't respect our sisters, when we don't understand their power, when we get caught up in this Western technology and this idea of male supremacy, you will fall. And in many ways we have. But we're all born with a Judas and a Messiah. We are all born with Satan and Asar. But it's Heru that is the resurrection of Asar, his father. And the reality of it is that Judas is that person in you that's telling you what you can't do. He's the betrayer of your human nature. And it is Asar that tells you what you can do. But then Satan is, and Judas is jealous of the Messiah, so they murder him. But before he goes into the underground, Heru is born, the resurrection. And what's important to understand is that this is who we are. Judas may fall 9 times, but your Messiah will rise 10. Always let your Messiah be who you are. And the Son of God is spelled S-U-N. And I'm just going to end here. Because then you go to the Bible. Because I tell people, don't throw that Bible out. That's some serious stuff. In fact, most of the Bible you can find on the pyramid text walls. John 3rd chapter, 16th verse. God so loved the earth, so loved the world, that he gave his only begotten Son. And those who believe in him, her, will live for eternity. That Son is spelled S-U-N. They don't know how to spell. They made it S-O-N and made it a male and don't realize that you are resurrected through the feminine energy. So family, I'm looking forward to this experience. My brother Amadeus, I thank you. My sister Saray, I thank you for what you do. To my brother Toby and to his family and to Gifted C, I send my regards. And Sister Zaza, I'm very proud to be with you today. I'm looking forward to it. Let's get it on.
That was beautiful. That was actually perfect. And as we go into this portion of the film, I want to give the audience an assignment. As you listen, I want you to combine what you're seeing in the imagery, in the music, and in the message with what Brother Kaba has just stated about, because this portion is about the divine feminine, just straight and clear. And there is an attack right now on the Black family system. And that is not by happenstance. That is a very calculated, cold calculated move. And I think, to me, what has been most beautiful about the experience of this film is that it kind of gives you a framework to go beyond that, to go beyond the beef, if you will, beyond our individual hurts and pains that we have experienced at the hands of one another, because there's something greater there. And if we're going to help heal ourselves and one another through our love for one another, it does have to be grounded in the history and understanding of who you are. So to all my people, as you're watching, think about that. Think about what is getting in your spirit as it surrounds how we can use this knowledge to heal and restore our relationships in our community, and how you can share that, as you share your reviews and as you share, the film and the trailer with people on your social media. Make sure to make sure that they peep that too. So check it out and see what you think. And I'm gonna hand it over to you.
All right, Kaba, we're going to bring you back up for the Q&A. This is just the intro, you guys. This is just the intro. You guys already got all of these nuggets and jewels dropped on you.
Right.
Kaba, we'll see you in a few.
Yeah. And ladies and gentlemen, also, as you are watching, please feel free to drop any questions in the chat. I'm trying to save them so that we can come back to them during the Q&A section directly following this clip of the film.
One thing I wanted to say, I'm so glad that Kaba made that segue. One thing I didn't say as I was talking about Heavy is the Crown is that Heavy is the Crown has a mother, and that mother is Dr. Sharshi McIntyre. Now, she had already gone to the ancestors long before I crafted this piece of work, but I happened to see one of her lectures on YouTube, and it really spoke to me. This was when I first had was in the process of conceptualizing Heavy is the Crown. And her words helped me craft this particular volume, but overall it helped me craft the entire film. So I want to give a shout out to Dr. Sharshi McIntyre as the mother. The part of the film you guys are about to see, I wish I could show you guys the whole film, but we decided to global distribution deal. So we're gonna be able to show you 2 chapters of the film, which I feel like are the most pertinent chapters. The first chapter, they play back to back. The first chapter is the divine, is the feminine principle. And then the second chapter we're gonna show you guys is the Madonna and Child. So it's about 30 minutes. I hope you guys are ready. After this section of film is over, we'll open it up for Q&A. I got a special surprise for you guys afterwards, but we'll bring Kaba and Zaza back on stage, and we might even have a special guest for you guys as well. So I hope you guys enjoyed the film, and here we go.
When you, myself, or anyone who's sincere does any research into Asiatic African culture, it is without doubt that the ancient cultures of the world were matriarchies, not patriarchies.
All universities, they say universities like the colleges, come from the womb of the woman. That is where everything came from. But what happened was actually it was a matriarch society.
You had the women ruling before men. As the domains got larger and you needed greater protection, then the man ruled on behalf of the woman.
It is the feminine principle that anoints the male leader. It may always be a male on the throne, but the throne herself is a feminine principle.
And so this becomes extremely important that we understand this concept here. So now, the heart is the seat. That's why you see the heart on the scale of Ma'at. All of these principles are based upon the woman energy. Ancient Kemet was a matrilineal system. The king, the lineage of the king was based upon his mother.
The great Senegalese multi-scholar, Dr. Cheikh Anta Diop, he was able to demonstrate through his scientific research that our culture and our ways were traced through the mother. Even the divine kingship of ancient Kemet was traced not through the father, but through the mother.
Where the line of inheritance, the line of the dynastic systems of family rule come through the feminine line. For instance, if my sister had a son and I have a son, if I were sitting on the throne, something happened to me, my son does not become the next Neset Beti. My sister's son becomes the next Neset Beti.
Cheikh Anta Diop deals with this concept of matrifocal. And what they were saying is that we trace the lineage of all things from the feminine because that's establishable. You can prove that, you can show that.
Most traditional African concepts are based upon that. We have some Western now because we've been influenced by other people, but most of traditional African and a lot of the indigenous people, but in the West, they have a patrilineal system. So the Asiatics and the Europeans come from a patrilineal. We come from a matrilineal system. where everything is passed down through the mother.
The cosmic universe understands that the feminine principle dominates the cosmos. Because it is in the woman, specifically, that keeps the civilization moving forward through growth and life.
The feminine energy in Kemet. The Ankh is the center focus in ancient Kemet. That's the key of life. So it shows you we understood life is eternal. Life cannot be destroyed. Life was energy. Energy cannot be destroyed, only transformed from one state to another. This was a science.
That's the proof of its origin. Therefore, all secret societies, all nations, all flags, and even the rules of nations and the rules of nature is called Mother Nature, Motherland, Mother Flag, and so you can even see in the nature of culture the matriarchal principle.
That's the science of the matrix. Matrix means womb of the woman. So it all still extends from your ancestors. All civilization come from woman, not a man.
In our traditional cultures, the woman was seen as divine. And this wasn't just in the way that we worshiped or in the way we did rituals or the way we practiced our culture. It was an everyday part of life.
And they made her the mother god, not just the mother of God, but the mother god that brought forward all things. And out of this, you have the story of Het-Heru, or Hathor, who has a phenomenal role in the development of the cosmic and the earthly existence.
The woman represents the earth itself. It represents the bounties of the earth. It represents the embodiment of giving life. It represents fertility. It represents sustenance. It represents nurturing. That is the earth. And in most African countries, there's a name for earth. Like in Ghana, they says Mother Earth, Asasiya. You're talking about the mother. She gives all the nutrients and the nurturing to everything else that lives.
So even when you see the Moors wearing the fez on their heads, the fez represents the womb of the woman. And every man has a navel that is connected to a woman.
Every man or every male has a belly button. A belly button is a common term used for the navel.
So the fez is the womb, the umbilical cord, the placenta. It represents the universe. That's woman.
Woman is the nurturing energy. For example, even the word Kemet ends with the T. It's the feminine energy, because nations were looked upon feminine. It grew, it gave birth, it nurtured. If it's a real nation, okay, it nurtures its people. You're expanding, you're growing, you're giving birth, and you're protecting. And nobody protects like the mother, you know?
In our culture, even in Ethiopia, it was always the woman that sat at the head. Everything came from the woman. That's actually, and a lot of people don't understand, that's actually an African tradition. All nations come from the woman.
And the study of the nature of the living beings on the planet Earth, etc., including man's coming into being in what is called nativity, or nationality. Natio means to be born or to come into being.
So the feminine energy is the centerpiece in ancient Kemet. In fact, I'd say this, the feminine energy might have been more organized than the male energy. We know all the things that the male priest had to go through. We don't know all the things that the females did.
She is the one that brought forward the human family. So it would make sense that the creator within the African woman would ensure that physically, physiologically, she would have everything needed to be able to sustain and nurture the development of the human family.
God creates. A woman creates. So maybe the true gods on this earth is women, and we as men would sit here to protect God while she creates.
The woman was revered as a creator. The woman is able to give birth, bring life into this world.
And in this celestial life system, our sisters now, here's where it's interesting. Sisters created math and science because it was sisters that began to realize, not men, but sisters, women began to realize that they had to prepare for their life cycle. There was something internal, there was something natural that demanded of our sisters to begin to develop something.
They noticed that the moon would go through certain phases every 28 days or so.
They saw that the moon would go through a metamorphosis.
They began to count in order to prepare for their life cycle. They recognized that their life cycle went through a 28, 29, 30-day cycle. They look up into the heavens and they realize that there is a celestial body that also goes through a 28, 29, 30-day cycle. That's the lunar cycle.
The moon goes through this metamorphosis every 29 days. The sun positions itself and moves across the heavens and returns to a position every 365.25 days.
So they began to see quarters of things. And so out of this, our sisters, after counting and developing a very sophisticated level of mathematics that's going to relate back to agriculture. So they began to multiply and divide.
They also understood by studying the moon and the sun how to keep track of time.
So we always elevated and celebrated the African woman. This is something very different than what we tend to typically experience in the Western world and in Western religious expressions and in Eurocentric culture.
And so that's one of the major differences that we find when it comes to African spirituality and European religion, that the role of the concept of the woman has completely been diminished.
Children of Africa that left out of Africa and variegated as living plants do and became Europeans. They begin to have a struggle with the feminine and the masculine as oppositional energies. and really wanted the masculine to be primary.
It was principally men who crafted this notion of the divine in masculine terms and left out the women.
And so as Europeans dominated, they felt that it was important for them to maintain their dominance and power, and the only way that they could do that was to remove the role of the woman in spirituality, in society, and in our culture, in order to ensure that they could be looked upon as God forces, or spiritual beings who were closer to the Creator.
But when you have been separated from the best of your culture, when you have been acculturated into someone else's culture of oppression, then you tend to forget who you are, where you came from, and what your own people held as sacred.
We are not looking at the world through our ancestors' eyes. We are impacted by white supremacy and by concepts of a white creator God that created all things, and particularly a male God, which is opposite to the way in which the African traditions think. In order to have a male God, you must have a female God.
But we know that by suppressing that feminine energy, all it did was bring about more chaos. It brought about Isfet, completely throwing every aspect of society and culture out of balance, throwing a sense of spirituality out of balance.
Africa never had that problem. We really saw, again, there's a naturally, divinely governed universe that is spirit energy, and that energy has certain activity.
Each aspect of the Creator had its masculine and feminine counterparts.
Every nature had its masculine and feminine counterpart, and they balanced each other out.
When we anthropomorphize those and put those in like the image of a man or the image of a woman, we lose an understanding what it was really about. It really is about the primary complementarity of feminine and masculine energy to produce life. You can't have one without the other.
Africa has always been based on the balance, the duality, the unity and duality.
Matriarchal gives the image of force, of power, of control, of domination. In Africa, it was balance. No one gender had control over anything. It was them in balance that made the system work, made the civilization grow. In Ma'at, in balance.
So ancient Kemet and Kosh was based upon that. In fact, in ancient Kosh, you had as many or more female leaders than you had male leaders. Because leadership is not based upon your gender. Leadership is based upon your information and your ability to disseminate that information and make it holistic in Ma'at.
We don't know, like, to me, to even say that God is a male, female. I always say he, she, or it, because we really don't know. And for me, you know, once I have a daughter or whoever I teach, from the feminine aspect, for me to even say that God is a man, to me is oppressive.
But what we honor is the energy and the spirit of our primary complementarity. That I'm incarnated as this male, but my maleness goes nowhere until I find my complement as the feminine, which is my wife, the mother of my children. And then we become that holy trinity that produces the new.
So our sisters developed and handed it down from mother to daughter for generations, for thousands of years, this knowledge and wisdom, which is going to be based in spirituality. And that is why you have the Madonna and child.
I've seen pictures of the popes in the Vatican. The last 5 popes, actually, you can actually go online and find them paying devotion and worshiping various black Madonnas. You can go in much of the churches of Eastern Europe, Russia, Ukraine, and those areas, Poland, Czechoslovakia. And the primary Madonnas are black.
They actually had no problems worshiping or honoring black figures. We can find in many parts in Southern Europe, in France, in Spain, and Italy, where the black Madonna and child, which is Excerpt and Heru. They worshiped them knowing that they were black.
And so there were images of this black mother and child that were regarded by the early Christians and Greeks as the black Madonna and child.
You can go into Ethiopia and you can see the origins of this Madonna and child. And it is, as we said earlier, it goes back to metaphor. It goes back to ideas of analogy and the myth that the mother of God and God who sits on the lap, that is why Excerpt is a throne.
You will see symbols of Excerpt and Horus, or what they'll say Horus is Horus, which means the sun. So Excerpt represents the feminine principle and the mother principle, and Horus represents the sun. S-U-N and S-O-N.
So you see the king suckling the breasts of the mother, which later the Europeans would use that as the black Madonna. And then the black will all of a sudden turn to white.
Because they understand, at least at that level, that their version of the Madonna and child, which begins to appear in pictures in the 15th century, is simply their rendition of an archetype. And that archetype is black. A black woman and a black child, with a black father god represented by Osiris. And that those three come together to cause creation to keep repeating itself. The initial creation with Atum and Nun and Ptah will constantly be recreated by Asar, Excerpt, and Heru. And Asar and Excerpt and Heru is the symbolic archetype for the human family.
The model of Heru and his mother Excerpt became the model for all human beings. So images of Excerpt and Heru were carved all throughout Kemet. Every king saw himself as the personification of Heru, the rebirth of Heru.
They would make symbols of Osset in the physical form, symbolize it, whether painted or in wooden carvings, etc., or statues or stone, and Horus sitting on her knee.
And that is why the Christ child sits on her lap as the Neset Biti, or the ruler, sits on the throne.
And from that ancient symbolism of the feminine or the mother and son principle, the Constantinians imitate that ancient imagery with statues and wood carvings and paintings called Mary and Jesus. That's where it has its origin.
There's no real ancient mother figures in the European world. If you look at that Venus figure, that's a black woman. So even ancient white folks, their godly mother material is a black woman.
They have to have that black Madonna there to worship the sister. So they have to have that sister there because you have to honor your mothers and your fathers, and all of them come from your ancestors. So this is why you will see the Pope bowing down, you know, worshiping the woman. The world worships the woman because they understand where it comes from.
All children is symbolic of Heru, or what in the Western tradition is called Jesus. All mother is a holy mother and symbolic of the mother Aset and what the West would call Mary. And so the popes and them, who are supposed to be the most learned among the theologians in the Western world, they're not lost on this truth. And that's why you'll see them paying devotion to the Black Madonna and Child, because that's the archetype out of which everything else proceeds in their tradition.
So that's why even on the slave plantation, they said you were 3/5 of a human, but they wanted you to suckle their babies and raise their kids. I mean, their actions was a contradiction of what they were saying. They understood who you were, but they made sure you didn't understand who you were.
The reason Europeans transform the image of the Black Madonna and Child into a white Madonna and white child is very normal. It was appropriate, and there's nothing wrong with it at all, because everyone should see God in their image and see themselves in the image of God. And since no one can visually see God, then when we make mistakes, when we say we're in God's image, no. Everyone that have any symbol of God, they have constructed God in their image. And that's what we did with the Black Madonna and Child. We constructed God in our image. So whites constructed their God in their image. The problem with what occurs here is when they force their construction of their anthropomorphic image of God on us.
Now here we are looking at what it is. We're looking at the Black Madonna, and in many ways, even we can't come to grips with it. So in our churches, we will put white images up. Knowing what the original images are throughout the world.
As being the only image of God, and that we now begin to worship the image of another culture, another paradigm, another reality. And in most instances, that culture and that reality is directly opposed to our values, our interests, and our principles. And so whites having white gods is very appropriate. Blacks having white gods is detrimental.
Many of the Christian leaders sought to destroy the temples by carving out images of Asar, Aset, and Heru. They recognized that there was power here.
And so you have the image of mother and son. And so when it comes to the study of the human family and its evolution on the planet Earth and the experiences of the generations for millennia, the preserved study is called mother and son study, thus Masonry.
If you know the narrative, you can trace the origin of Mary and Jesus to the Black Madonna child, to Aset and Heru. It's the same narrative.
And again, there's nothing wrong with this. What is wrong is people rejecting the notion that this all had its genesis with African people, and then changing the symbols so that it looks like the other ethnic group and displaying it in the other ethnic group cultural expression while denying the African genesis of all of this.